David was psychologically immobilized by his ex-wife. His girlfriend Maggie brings him back to sexual satisfaction using 5 weeks plan. It has been 3 months since he finally left his wife after 17 years of marriage. A few years ago, she began accusing him of having affairs with targets of her choosing. It started with her insistence that he slept with one of the women in the office where he worked at the time. David didn't travel often, but when he returned from recent trips, Peggy greeted him with a coldness he had never encountered before in their marriage, demanding to know who he had sex with during the trip. And lately she was almost constantly angry with him because of some imaginary infidelities. Her frequent accusations always led to angry arguments and shouting matches. Their sex life almost ceased due to her criticism of his sexual performance. She destroyed any confidence he had in his sexual abilities. He knew he wasn't cheating on her, but his wife had created her own reality where he was a ladies' man, just like her father. The only person he had sex with since their wedding was his wife. But no matter how much he insisted that her accusations were false, she refused to believe him, and every time he denied it, she added a new lie to her clever list of his misdeeds. It got so bad that he left her twice before, but her begging and tears kept him coming back. He probably could have gotten used to her attacks if it weren't for the fact that he was coming out of several years of suicidal depression and didn't have the emotional strength to continue to accept her very negative opinion of him. This came to a head one evening when she claimed that on her way home, she saw his car speeding past her on the highway, hurrying home with an imaginary date. He had returned home from work more than an hour earlier when she burst through the door and started screaming at him, demanding to know who he was with. After a shouting match, he found himself in his room with his grandfather's revolver in his hand, ready to end it. He came close, but his rational mind took over and led him to the only other action that would remove him from the toxic relationship, leaving the marriage for good. The next day, he returned home after his wife left for work and packed his necessities, including the gun, into boxes, put them in the back of his SUV, and drove to his weekly rental hotel. He spent the first night alone, analyzing what this choice meant for his life. He had enough money to live on his own, which he could afford indefinitely. His wife had moved out of their bedroom a few months earlier, so the lack of sex was not an issue. He continued to satisfy his needs on his own, as he had done since his wife began denying him. But he was still afraid that she would overtake his resistance again and persuade him to return home. To counter this, he decided they needed to get a divorce. To do this, you need a complete break. The next day, he inquired and found a men's lawyer who specialized in divorce from the husband's point of view. Within a week, the lawyer served Peggy with legal documents. Her first reaction was to use the begging and crying method that had worked before, but he did it and told her he had made up his mind. 6 months later, the divorce decree was issued and he was free of the problem physically, but not emotionally. He didn't realize it at the time, but his separation and divorce from his wife left deep emotional scars. They became a couple when they were both in high school and have been together ever since. Such relationships cannot end without pain. His friends advised him to start dating other women, but the thought of an evening date with a woman, any woman, led to bouts of crying, and the thought of going to bed with one of them was not a thought he allowed himself to consider. But his newfound independence opened a previously inaccessible door. He could work late into the night without worrying about the consequences awaiting him at home. He had always enjoyed his job as a research scientist, but his wife had a way of making him feel guilty for liking his job more than hers, at least from her point of view. Now he could immerse himself in work for hours. I didn't talk about my marital problems with my co-workers for fear that it would go back to my wife and cause me more grief. Even after the divorce, only a few of my closest friends knew about it. But of course, nothing is a secret from the office rumor mill. Luckily, there weren't any single women in our office, so I didn't have to fend off any cougars. But at times I wished I had a female friend who could talk through what I was going through. Women understand emotional pain. A few weeks after the divorce, I was assigned to work on a new project. This was a top-secret government project that required research personnel to be locked in a secret laboratory whenever they worked. The staff consisted of only me and another scientist doctor, Margaret Monahan Maggie. I didn't know her well before I started working with her because she spent most of her time isolated. But after a few days of working together, we got to know each other well. Our conversations began with ordinary, non-personal questions. What university did you go to? Where did you grow up? Where does your spouse work? A sneaky way of asking if I'm married, and picking each other's head on dozens of technical subjects. After the first couple of months, our relationship progressed to more casual, everyday topics. I deliberately avoided telling her about my ex-marriage and divorce because I didn't want her to feel sorry for me, but I shouldn't have worried. Like me, her feelings took a backseat to rational reasoning. But one day, when we were working on a new experiment, she casually asked, "I heard that you recently got divorced." I answered, "Yeah." When I didn't elaborate, she added, "Was it controversial?" No, not at all. We both knew it was over by then. When I didn't add any details, she asked, "How long have you been married?" If you count the last 3 years of high school when we were a couple, let's see, 22 years. So you were the classic high school sweethearts who got married right after high school. Not really. We didn't get married right away. We waited until I got my bachelor's degree, then we got married, and waited until then before we had sex. Wow, it must have been hard not to give in to your passions. Well, we fooled around a lot, all the way to third base a lot. God, I remember the days when my husband and I were abstinent. We didn't last that long, though. I would like to. The marriage only lasted 3 years before he cheated on me. What did you do, Maggie? I would not tolerate such treatment, so I filed for divorce. Did the divorce take a while? No, because right after he was handed the papers, he was too cruel to me. The judge didn't take it too kindly. He was still in prison when the divorce was finalized. It sounds like your divorce was a lot more exciting than mine. I was hospitalized for 2 weeks. There's no excitement about it. I didn't know how to respond to that, so I closed my mouth. The two of us worked in silence for the rest of the day. That night, as I lay in bed, I thought about my divorce and how terrible it must have been for Maggie. I felt tears in my eyes, but quickly suppressed these feelings. I should have paid attention to this because these feelings were telling me that I had not even begun to be aware of my hidden emotions. The friendship between Maggie and I grew closer as we chatted while working. One day, she asked me if I cooked for myself. Yes, I heat up a can of soup every now and then, but I mostly eat food from nearby fast food restaurants and visit the local Golden Corral from time to time. How do you eat this stuff? This is the most unhealthy diet that I can think of. It's mostly about keeping things simple. After the divorce, I had no motivation to do anything. I guess I'm a little depressed. Maggie was silent for a moment and then asked, "When was the last time you ate home-cooked food?" My wife stopped cooking for me for the last 6 months of our marriage, so it's been a while. Another pause. If I cook you a nutritious dinner and bring it to your house one night, would that be okay? I have some good casserole recipes. No, I wouldn't want you to take on all this trouble, but thanks for the offer. It's not a problem. I would make this for dinner, so all it would take is some extra ingredients. It took me a few minutes to think things through. At this stage, I didn't want to complicate my life with relationships. On the other hand, she was easy to talk to and helped me cope with my separation from my wife. But part of me, mostly the depressed part, wanted me to remain alone while I sorted through my memories and emotions. There is a certain comfort in loneliness and depression. Thanks again for the offer, Maggie, but I think I'll decline. I just want to be alone right now. Let me be the judge of this, David. If you're worried that I'm looking for a new man in my life, you can forget about it. We're just friends, that's all. and I hope that you will trust me enough to let me help you deal with whatever is bothering you. It doesn't bother me. Why do you think so? Because I've been through a divorce and I know the pain you're feeling, or trying to hide. I'll come over with a casserole on Saturday night, whether you like it or not. You can lock the door and let me in. Has anyone ever told you how stubborn you are? Maggie had just taken the casserole out of David's microwave after heating it up when there was a knock on David's door. He walked over and looked through the small lens in the door. "Oh shit," he exclaimed. Maggie looked up and asked who was at the door. "This is Peggy, my ex-wife. What the hell does she want?" When David opened the door, he stood his body fat squeezed. She said in a sweet voice, "I collected the mail that arrived for you at home, so I wanted to leave it. I thought maybe we could talk and see where she goes next." When Maggie heard this, she walked over so that Peggy could see that David had company. Peggy's eyes widened in surprise and then turned into angry slits. "What is she doing here?" "She's a friend from work who brought me dinner." "Right. And what else is she planning to give you tonight? You don't live with her, do you?" Without waiting for an answer, she walked past David and stopped in front of Maggie. "Where did you pick up this lady?" she asked David. "Did you sleep with her while we were married?" "Of course, just like with all the other women, you bastard. You fucking bastard." Maggie stepped between the two of them, hoping to calm her down. Peggy hit Maggie. David kicked her out of the house and slammed the door in her face, locking it immediately. He turned back to Maggie. "Are you okay?" "No, I'm just surprised." "I'm so sorry you had to see that, Maggie." "Well, at least now I know what you went through before the divorce. She's a real bitch." "It wasn't always like this. There used to be a lot of love in marriage." With this thought, David began to cry. He turned his back to Maggie. His shoulders shook as his emotions overcame him. He hoped it would stop. But as the tears got worse, he said, "Maybe you should leave. I don't want to ruin your evening. It will take some time before this goes away." She turned him around to face her. "Nonsense. You need someone to help you through this. I won't leave until you can smile at me." David turned away from her, trying to hide his crying face from her, but Maggie moved forward until she was in front of him. She put her hands on his shoulders, trying to calm him down, but it didn't help, so she walked over to him and hugged him. "I know it hurts a lot right now, David, but trust me, the pain will lessen with time. It will probably never go away completely because every now and then someone will say something, or you will see something that will bring it back to life. Superficial, but each time it will have less and less power over you." She led him to the sofa and sat down next to him, hugging his shoulders. An hour passed before David was able to return to an almost normal state and smile at Maggie. "Come to the table, David. I'll heat up dinner and we can talk while we eat." Afterwards, as she was about to leave, she told him, "I want you to know that I'm here to help. Just call me anytime." With these words, she stood on her tiptoes, kissed him briefly on the cheek, and walked to her car. The next Monday morning at work, David was worried that Maggie would remember his breakdown on Saturday night and try to keep her distance so as not to trigger another crying fit. He couldn't imagine how awkward he would be if this happened here in the workplace. If this had happened, the boss would probably have ordered him to be taken away in a straitjacket. But he was surprised to find that no one looked at him sideways, so it was clear that Maggie had not told anyone about this. Good. This meant that he could trust her and not share their conversations with anyone. But as soon as they were in the laboratory with the doors locked, she took his hands, looked into his eyes, and sincerely asked, "How are you, David? Did you have any other painful attacks after I left?" "No, I was sleeping, and I slept better than I had in a long time." This is what happens when you release hidden emotions. As I tried to rebuild my life, I learned that I needed to turn toward the pain, not away from it. Otherwise, she'll just disappear again, and you'll have to deal with her later. David was silent for a minute or two before speaking. Look, I really need to. Thank you for helping me get through this. I haven't completely given up on the idea of ending this once and for all, but it's good that you were there. Maggie looked at him with concern. So you still have thoughts about it? Yes, sometimes. But why? He paused before answering. Because it's the only true way to end the pain. Oh my God, David, you have to make me a promise. Whenever such thoughts appear, you should call me immediately. If I had known that Saturday, I would have spent the night at your apartment to make sure you didn't do something stupid. What if continuing to endure pain is the stupidest thing you can do? Maggie didn't have an answer to this question. Clearly David's thinking was distorted, but how could she correct it? She spent the whole working day thinking, trying to find the answer. Just before she left, she realized what she needed to do. She joined David on the way out the door. I'm going to run to my house to pack some things, and then I'll move in with you to keep an eye on you. No, this is my apartment, and you are not welcome here if you plan to control me. I had plenty of that in my marriage to Peggy, and I will never let that happen again. Maggie did not argue, but said, Perhaps I expressed myself incorrectly. I don't plan to move in with you. I just want to be home in case you have another breakdown that might push you over the edge. I will stay as far away from you as you wish. If you want distance, you'll hardly know I'm here. If you need a friend, I can continue to play that role, but there is no reason for you to feel in control. David thought about this for a moment. I think I overreacted to Maggie. The way Peggy made me feel guilty in order to control me made me afraid of relationships with women. I know I can trust you not to play with my emotions. I am sorry. Apologies are accepted. I'll be back in less than an hour, so clean up the bedroom for me. David decided that if she showed up with several suitcases, he wouldn't let her in because it would signal that she had something more permanent on her mind. But he needn't have worried. 40 minutes later, she appeared at the door with nothing but a small duffel bag. Is that all you have? He will keep me for about a week. I will go to my place every weekend to do laundry and buy everything I need for the next week. David showed her the spare bedroom. He made the bed, wiped off the dust, and vacuumed the carpet. She threw her bag on the bed and put her laptop on the table. I'm assuming you have an internet connection via Wi-Fi. How do I log in? While he was showing her how to connect, he took a quick glance at the pile of clothes on the bed, okay, he thought. Only simple cotton underwear and pajamas. Nothing she could use to seduce me. It made him feel more at ease in her presence. They began to live comfortably together. They took turns cooking, shopping for groceries, and cleaning. After dinner, they either sat on opposite ends of the couch and watched TV or a movie, or sat down at their laptops and browsed scientific sites on the internet. Maggie glanced at David's screen from time to time to see what he was looking at. She decided that if she saw him watching an adult video, she would immediately end their relationship. But a month later, she did not see a hint of this on his screen. It made her wonder what David did for sexual relief. She knew that a man's libido peaked about every week until relief occurred. But she never heard any sounds from his bedroom that would indicate that. Finally, curiosity got the better of me. David, can I ask you a question? Sure. What do you want to know? It's something personal. In that case, I don't have to answer. So what's the question? What do you do for sex to release pent-up desire? She immediately blushed and expected to see the same reaction from him. When he didn't answer right away, she regretted not asking the question. Apparently, he didn't want to answer. I'm so sorry, David. It's too personal. Forget what I asked. No, that's a good question. I just need to think a little. Let's see. Peggy moved out of our bedroom last January, so it's been 9 months. 9 months since I last made love to a woman. I took care of my own needs for a while, but after my divorce I just lost interest. It was as if my sex drive had simply switched off. Maggie just looked at him for a minute. With a new wave of blushing, she said, "I did not expect such details, but thank you for this. So, it's been 9 months. How do you stand it?" As I said, my libido disappeared after I broke up with Peggy. And even before that, when Peggy wanted to make love from time to time, there was little point in it. She didn't want any foreplay. I wondered why she did this until I realized that she was just checking to see if I had been with someone else before her. Wow, you didn't have good sex in what? 3 or 4 years. Maggie just sat and thought about the additional torture associated with the lack of normal sexual satisfaction. They both just sat in silence for a while. Then David broke the silence. "I think I'll go to bed. See you in the morning, Maggie." Before he could leave, Maggie stood up and hugged him. He saw tears in her eyes as she looked into his face. "I'm so sorry you had to go through that, David. I wish. Good night." As he walked up the stairs, she finished her thought in her mind. "I would like to somehow make amends to you." The next morning was Sunday, so neither of them had to go to work. Maggie was actually planning to go out with a friend, but after last night she needed to discuss something with David. She waited until breakfast was over, and they sat on the sofa with a cup of coffee. David, can we continue the discussion we had last night?" "I guess so, but I thought we'd pretty much said everything I wanted to say." "Okay, then it's my turn. Please don't interrupt until I'm done." "Fine. I spent some time online last night researching your situation and learned a lot. It is not uncommon for a man to lose his sex drive after the death of his spouse. But it also happens when a woman manipulates her man, like Peggy did to you. She convinces the man that he is incompetent as a lover and that no woman can help him. I think this is your situation. Peggy emotionally did this to you. This deprives you of the ability to act. This is a really serious problem. Simply making love to a woman will not change your opinion of yourself. In fact, if done incorrectly, attempts to awaken your desire will never succeed. You need the help of a therapist or the dedicated efforts of a woman you trust to have your best interests at heart. I'd like to think that I'm that woman and that you'll let me take you through the program. So, can you do it? Are you offering to help me regain my interest in sex? Yes, I think I'm the perfect partner to take you there. I am a friend, a close friend, in whom you have no sexual interest. This is important because if you were interested in me sexually, I would quickly become an extension of your sexual interest in your ex-wife, and that would never work. But the opposite is also true. Your friend cannot be sexually interested in this topic. Otherwise, she may try to start a love relationship with you. Will you allow me to carry out the libido regeneration process? I think this could work. Maggie, what is needed for this? First week. They both sat facing each other on the couch as Maggie explained what David should expect. I found something on the internet called 5 Weeks Plan. The psychology of this approach is to gradually return the man to the pleasure of sex without the negativity created by his ex-partner. It takes place over 5 weeks and is led by a guide me. In this case, it starts with a guide and patient meeting in mildly sexual situations. Each week, the degree of sexuality between subject and guide you and me increases. If at any time you feel threatened, we move down the sexuality scale to the previous level and remain there until your emotions are under control again. Then we will continue to move up the scale. Wouldn't this cause constant sexual arousal in the subject? This will be difficult to deal with. That's the goal of the whole program. Once you reach this level, you will be healthy. And you? Aren't you going to worry all this time? That's why the guide should be a friend who is not sexually attracted to the subject. So, you're not sexually attracted to me right now, not even a little bit. Are you kidding? After what my ex-husband did to me, I don't think I ever want to have sex again. At least not with a man. So you changed your orientation. In no case. but I accept the possibility that someday I will be able to enjoy sex with a woman. So, that's it. This is the program. Do you have any questions? David asked with some trepidation. When do we start? Maggie stood up. Right now, if you want. If it becomes too much for me to cope with, can I drop out of school? No, because the broken part of you will look for ways to escape the pain associated with the program, and quitting is the easiest way out. If you're going to do it, you're going to have to dedicate yourself to the whole program. David thought for a few moments. Okay, I'm in. Maggie replied, okay, then unzipped her shorts and dropped them to the floor. Then she took off her t-shirt, staying only in a bra and panties. She looked to see what his reaction would be. David instinctively turned away. You can't do this. It is not right. Look, part of the program is retraining your natural reactions to sexual things to bypass prudish thoughts. So turn around and look at me. He slowly turned to her. He saw an attractive woman, 5 feet 10 inches tall, slim, with well-toned muscles. Her opaque bra completely covered her breasts, not allowing any details to show through. So, how long will you stay like this, Maggie? This first week, I will be half naked when the two of us are alone in your apartment. It will take some getting used to, but I think I can handle it. Maggie nodded and plopped down next to him on the couch. He walked away, feeling awkward that he was too close to her. But as the day went on, and they each did what they usually did, it bothered him less and less. Even eating dinner across from her at the kitchen table wasn't wrong. That night they went to their rooms, said goodnight, and closed the doors. When David got into bed, he breathed a sigh of relief. I survived the first day. It wasn't that bad. At that moment, he heard a knock on the door. What? Did you hear me? David moved to the edge of the bed and folded the blanket, making room for a partially undressed Maggie to lie down next to him. Maggie crawled under the blanket and lay on her back. What's the matter, David? She asked. This is part of the treatment program. We should sleep together without touching, at least for the first week. They lay silently for a while, not speaking. Then David spoke. This will cause a lot of thoughts in my head. That's exactly the goal, she replied. By the third night, these thoughts had practically disappeared. He left Maggie some space and listened to her knocks. This time she didn't knock, she just walked in. She went to turn off the light in the room, but left it on long enough for him to remember her image before it became dark. He was surprised that she changed her underwear. As she climbed in next to him, he remarked, You've upped the ante, haven't you? It's part of the program. So where are you going next? Panties. No, it's not that far. After a pause, he asked, Won't it end with stripping naked? No, this is a graduate course. After finishing the first week on Sunday morning, David was looking forward to moving on to the second phase of the program and asked Maggie what was next for him. She replied, Not so fast. I need to evaluate your progress in the first week. Okay, what do you want to know? Maggie sat on a stool in a white robe, with a notepad and glasses. She picked up her notebook and began reading the questions. Looks like she ticked off or made short notes summarizing his answers. Maggie smiled for a moment as she asked the last question. On a scale of 0 to 10, how would you rate your libido level right now? 0. So you didn't find this week sexually exciting at all? In no case. Well, that's a little disappointing. We'll see what happens in week 2. Maggie stood up, put her notebook and glasses on the kitchen table, and opened her robe. She held it open for almost a minute, then took it off and hung it in the closet. She stood in front of him again and slowly turned around so he could see what she had. What do you see, David? I see a beautiful woman in a sheer lace bra and panties. Oh, and she's smiling too, he added, feeling her smile lift his spirits. Then he quickly turned away. She took his chin in her hand and turned his face so he looked at her again. Keep watching. Get over your program and really look. There is no time limit. She gave him a few minutes while his eyes moved from body part to body part. They continued their usual evening routine. David brushed his teeth and climbed into bed, moving to the side to make room for Maggie. But she lay down closer to him. Don't be afraid, David. She can't hurt you anymore, and I'm nothing like her. Just relax and try to sleep. She continued to try to calm him down, but after 30 minutes, David said, I can't do this. Maggie, I'm in pain, and I'm going to break down and cry. She rolled away from him. She held his hand as she lay next to him and said, Don't worry, David. Like many things, it's 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Come on, I'll change into less revealing underwear. He grabbed her by the wrist. No, don't do that. I love looking at your body, and the more I see, the happier I am. Until we overdo it skin to skin, I'll be fine. Okay, David. We'll try this later and then see if we can move on. 2nd week. By the end of the 2nd week, David had finally gotten used to Maggie sleeping next to him with some skin contact. David was really used to seeing her in lacy lingerie without feeling confused. So, the 2nd Sunday began with the usual questions. David reported that his emotions were changing slightly. He expected to be closer to this point in his recovery. Week 3. After breakfast on Sunday, Maggie asked the usual questions. David reported his emotions were brighter than the previous week. He expected to be at this stage of treatment further. What's important, David, is that there has been some improvement, no matter how small. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a first step and all that. Don't be discouraged. The program this week should show even greater results. This week, he kissed her. Week 4. David couldn't wait for Maggie to wake up on Sunday morning. He cleared his throat several times, hoping it would wake her, but she didn't move. He went down to the kitchen, made coffee, poured 2 mugs, and took them to the bedroom. She was sleeping, so he slowly brought the cup to her nose. She blinked a couple of times, then her eyes opened wide. Without a word, she sat up, grabbed the cup, and took a long sip. Ah, just what I need. She bit again and looked at David. Thank you, David. That was nice of you. David sat down on the bed with his coffee and looked at her questioningly. After a few seconds, she realized he was waiting. You're wondering what I have planned for week 4, aren't you? How did you guess? Your impatience to move forward is very encouraging. It means you are no longer afraid of having a sexual partner. Let's go through the questions and then get started. David's responses were more positive than last week. That's good. Very good. On a scale of 1 to 10, how strong were you this week? Well, it definitely wasn't 10. I'd say about 8. Great. That means you're ready to move forward with the plan. When they both woke up, Maggie began preparing breakfast. David put on shorts and a t-shirt and hurried down to the kitchen, where he immediately hugged Maggie and kissed her. Why such a big breakfast, my dear? Because today you'll have all the strength you can muster for today's classes. Handsome. When they finished, Maggie told him to stay in the kitchen while she tidied up the bedroom. As soon as he washed the dishes, he heard her shout, "Okay, you can get up now." When he reached the top floor, the bedroom door was closed and Maggie was standing in the bathroom doorway. Take those things off, baby. We're going to start the day with a shower together. Oh my God, Maggie, this is amazing. What is this for? You will make love to me. His eyes widened. Are you serious? For real? Only the best for the man I love. The final exercise is to use everything I've taught you to give us a day of pure pleasure. As they began to fall asleep, Maggie said, "Oh, David, I need to tell you something." What is this? There's no 5-week plan. I made it up as I went along. I was going to get us into bed any way possible. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.